You ever played Halo? Not like new Halo, not Halo Infinite. I mean Halo, like old Halo. You know, the one that's got that feel to it. You know the feeling I'm talking about. It's the one that you feel when you watch Terminator 2 and Field of Dreams and Star Wars, but really even deeper than that. You know the deep I'm talking about. It's... Well, come on.
Yeah, this kind of deep. Here's my question though. Where'd that go? It's no secret that 343 has failed to replicate whatever Bungie was onto with that initial trilogy, and yes, I know the Halo show has also failed to replicate it, but why was it so hard for 343?
Because wasn't 343 the one who added all the personality to Master Chief? And didn't they better define the struggle with the moral ambiguities of war and the Spartan program? I mean, didn't they do that thing where life-size Cortana touched Chief and said,
I've waited so long to do that?
Because none of that is bad on its face, it's just off-brand. You see, the first Halo really was just a fun story the player could immerse themselves into behind the visor of the strong and mostly silent Master Chief. It kind of reminds me of that movie American Werewolf in London. If you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, but the point of comparison is that, like Halo, this movie bended the boundaries of most traditional genres and refused to stay in one lane. It was horror and comedy and romance and action and almost every other genre you could think of all in one, just like Halo Combat Evolved. Halo did this by opening up their game on a linear spaceship level with extremely tight corridors. In this way, it would have resembled most other shooters at the time with a limited capacity to expand their game beyond shoot this bad guy around this tight corner and shoot this bad guy around this tight corner. But then the following mission breaks this tradition by revealing the ever-expanding world of Halo. You walk onto that ring for the first time and the music cue plays, and that's when it hits you. This is where Halo starts to find that special thing I was talking about before that 343 just can't quite seem to get. First, it was just like everybody else, but now it's something more, something mysterious, something beautiful, and something much deeper than any of us will understand. And boom, new genre, sci-fi and fantasy and action-adventure. Of course, then we find the cave that clearly isn't a natural formation.
This cave is not a natural formation.
And boom, now we've added mystery to the roster. It's not just a new world, but it's a world that was clearly created by somebody with meticulous attention to detail and massive cathedral-like integrity. Although oddly, this somebody is clearly long gone, and we learn almost nothing about them. All we know is that they're called the Forerunners, or the ones who came before. Honestly, all this mystery that constantly seeps from Halo is where my mind goes every time I hear that choir singing the opening theme. The best measure I could use for comparison is the feeling of thalassophobia. According to Wikipedia, thalassophobia is the persistent, intense fear of bodies of deep, dark water and what exists below the surface, or what could exist below the surface. Now that's what Halo's got going for it. Depth. The unexplorable kind of depth that we can feel in our bones, with who knows how many ancient mysteries or evils that could be lurking beneath the surface. Which leads me to my next point, and also the following bend in genre: the Flood. So, just after we started to get the hang of this whole Halo story as we currently understand it, Master Chief finds himself searching through a quiet underground facility alone with blood everywhere, but no bodies. And the story starts to creep into horror territory now. The score backs up the eerie feeling crawling up our spine until we finally discover the ancient evil that has been awoken, the parasitic zombie spores known as the Flood. The ones that take over the bodies of the once living creatures and turn them into mindless zombies that seem almost unstoppable. Now that we've found the Flood, the story has an objective. We realize Halo was a weapon and it was used to stop the Flood until, boom, new twist, the rings actually kill everybody except the Flood. They're just meant for starving out the Flood by having no one else for them to take over. Now that's a moral dilemma for you. Destroy life now to preserve the human race, and all races for that matter, or risk it all and try to get a handle on this ancient evil that even the Forerunners couldn't get a handle on thousands of years ago. Do you see what I mean when I say Halo Combat Evolved truly had it all? It didn't need more complex characters and questions about the morality of war because it wasn't some meta-modern mess trying to critique everything while simultaneously glorifying the thing it's critiquing.
Why do you always have to take whatever happens to us and shove it up its own?
And it didn't need this because its depth lies in its archetypes, not in the subtle personal nuances or sexual tension between the characters. Master Chief is interesting because he represents the hero that can be called forth in all of us, not because we're curious if he ever feels like his feelings are invalid, or what kind of job he might have if he wasn't a soldier, or if he ever thinks the suit is itchy, and especially not if he would remove an emotional pellet from— I'm sorry, I will talk about the Halo show later, that's not this. I will restrain myself. Anyway, moving on. The Covenant is bad not because humans are racist and because we need to rethink all of our own biases, but because they act as the metaphysical tyrant. They're the part of us that wants to control not for the benefit of others, but for its own sake. The part of us that secretly craves power and would do anything to attain it. Now, the Flood is bad not because we're scared of what we don't know and we need to investigate our own cruelty and zombie-like nature, but because they represent the shadow, the sin, and the thing we have to work to destroy in all of us that seeks to act out of fear and self-interest. This sin is the force that waits by our door and wishes to have its way with us, consuming our waking life to do its bidding, whether it's alcoholism, pornography, or something much worse. In fact, the Gravemind actually confirms my hypothesis of the Flood's identity later in Halo 2 when it says,
I am a monument to all your sins.
You have to understand, when you seek to tell an archetypal story, it's actually a lot like understanding a dream. When interpreting a dream, it's important to remember that all of the specifics of the characters and locations, they're just symbols. Poetic placeholders that represent different aspects of you. Everybody is you, or at least some potential part of you lying somewhere in your unconscious waiting to be realized. So in Halo, we're not killing innocent or morally ambiguous foes like All Quiet on the Western Front, though that's a great story too and definitely has its place. It's just not Halo's story. Instead, in Halo, we're exploring the galaxy inside our own psyche and fighting through the depths of our unconscious as the big green hero that we all feel we could be somewhere deep down within us. To kill the pieces of us that wish to humiliate others like the brutes or cower in fear like the grunts in the face of trouble. We also fight and stay vigilant to keep from being consumed by the temptation to bow out of the trouble and manipulate, deceive, or distract ourselves and drown in our own vices as the Flood would represent. All the while, we are led by Cortana. Interestingly enough, she perfectly resembles the archetype of the anima, or the feminine side of the masculine unconscious. Cortana is the talkative female yin to Chief's silent masculine yang. These are two parts that make up a conscious person and make them complete. According to Carl Jung, a prominent psychologist and student of Freud, who coined most of these archetypes, the anima is the woman inside every man which represents the true self and the primary source of communication with the collective unconscious. So the collective unconscious is a really complicated idea, but I can best sum it up like this.
The reason we call things deep at all is because they connect to people all across the world, regardless of age, race, gender, or even time period. Just like the vast oceans that connect our continents together, the collective unconscious is something like the deepest parts of all of our minds that are connected in some way.
That's why fairy tales carry across cultures and centuries. It's why the Avengers movies, though written in America by Americans, can connect with and even break the box office across all the world, and people who live in different cultures and value systems. It's because of these archetypes that we all connect with. The archetypes that were represented in Halo Combat Evolved. And think about it. Who does Cortana, the anima, communicate between? The Chief, us, and the ancient alien system of the Halo ring itself, the collective unconscious. Cortana helps us to understand the depths because she's the feminine yin, which is representative of the unknown, while Master Chief's masculine yang is representative of the order that steps into the unknown and conquers it by slaying the dragon, or in this case, the aliens. In our more contemporary postmodern world, stories like the Barbie movie may be really fun to watch, and actually really interesting because they sharply challenge our current cultural norms, but the Barbie movie is landlocked to this current time. In 100 years, those cultural norms will have changed, as they always do, and the rebellious and brave nature of the Barbie movie will be lost. But the archetypal and timeless story of Halo won't be. Just like the religious stories of ancient Greece or the plays of Sophocles aren't lost on us today. People, even generations may come and go, but the hero, the shadow, the anima, the tyrant, these things remain as constants across all time. And Halo planted its story firmly within them, not selling out for shock value or a cheap twist that challenges our current cultural norms. That's why it frustrates me so much when I hear critiques like this about Halo.
My experience with science fiction has led me to believe that when you start a story this way, in the end, there'll be a big twist where the humans who abused, kidnapped children were the real bad guys. But this book subverts my expectations by not doing that. It is extremely black and white. Alien, bad. UNSC, good.
To be fair, that's a fantastic video, and I actually recommend you should watch it, but my point about his comment is this. Halo doesn't subvert those expectations because subverting expectations is really just a tired trope of the postmodern era of storytelling. It's not a lack of nuance in Halo, it's just a different kind of storytelling altogether. You see, Postmodernism gave birth to a brand of storytelling that seeks to destroy any trust we have in a narrative that builds up rules about the world at all. If the modern era gave us films that said communists are bad and must be stopped, then the postmodern era gave us films that said films that tell you anybody's bad or anything about anything are untrustworthy and you shouldn't listen to them because all narrative is suspect anyway. Although they said this while also saying you can trust us because we're all postmodern and crap. It's a paradox, of course. The Ouroboros snake that eats its own tail. Eventually it runs out of rope. All in all, there are definitely some great postmodern stories out there. Pulp Fiction, No Country for Old Men, The Big Lebowski, and Lady Bird, just to name a few of my favorites. But Halo CE just is not one of them. If you try to understand it as this, you'll miss it entirely. On the other hand, if you know or can feel that depth when you hear the ancient chant upon booting up the game, you know you're in for one heck of a ride. And it's not just because you like fighting for the sake of participating in mindless violence or because you just need some random distraction. It's because you know depth when you see it. And with Halo, you can feel it too. Even if you can't articulate any of the archetypes I've outlined here, you probably know on some level there's something deep about Halo that brings you back to this 20-year-old game over and over again. So that's essentially my case. It's not the graphics or the action that make Halo so special, though those things were also pretty impressive for their time, but instead it's all the psychological and archetypal depths Halo CE can take you to, while simultaneously bending genres and having just a little bit of everything for the player to experience. Now that I've presented the evidence, hopefully you'll agree with me when I say Halo clearly is not just another sci-fi shooter, but really, Halo Combat Evolved is deep. Hey, if you like this video, don't forget there's more to come out just like it soon. I'm actually doing a short series right now on the original Bungie trilogy and why I feel it stands out so much as compared to the later 343 games. So there's more to come just like this soon, and thanks for watching.